Hey guys, I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and this is the Be More podcast, and it is Monday night at 9:40 p.m. And if you are on with us visually right now, you can totally tell that it's 9:40 at night on a Monday. I'm wearing a cat sweater. Like
I
that's
was wondering what you're wearing, to be quite
I'm
honest with
wearing
you.
a cat sweater. My father gave this to me, I think, at some point when I was in college, and it's super comfy, and I'm for it.
Good for you. And yeah, I'm just chilling at
Yeah, Maria,
9:40 at night.
yeah, she's all the same things, but
Yeah.
that's how you can tell if you look at us visually. Apologies in advance for any additional fun sounds that I make. I have a sinus infection.
And I don't have fruit today, so no ASMR for y'all.
There
Sorry.
we go. I'm gonna eat a cookie and drink some tea, so that'll probably
Oh,
be
okay.
good enough. So actually, this is perfect because the stuff we're gonna talk about tonight, if I was telling Maria, so Maria and I both looked over all the stuff we're gonna talk about, and I'll tell you back like where the source is coming from. But me like a year ago, never in a million. If you would have told me, like, Brittany, you're gonna record yourself in your glasses with no makeup on, wearing a cat sweater, I'd have been like, absolutely not. No, I'm not. Um, but this episode's gonna be really good, talking about around all of this idea of it being a fear that I've had. And also, I told Maria that it's very interesting because this conversation, we're going to be talking about fear tonight, friends, and we're not going to be talking about fear in the aspect of I'm afraid of this, like actual, like, I don't know, not actual fears, but like literal fears that we might have. We're going to be talking about the fear of other people,
I was gonna say like the fear of like literally people.
the fear of people, which it's great because I told Maria at the point that I am in my life, I'm really starting to address the fact that I had this underlying fear that I didn't even realize was in my head and starting to actually deal with it. So there's that.
Good.
So
That's scary.
yeah, like right, that's scary.
Like
People
literally.
are scary. And it's funny because the title of this chapter, so just to give everybody a little like what is she talking about? I'm reading a book called Built Through Courage by Dave Hollis. And the more I read this book, the more I find out like all of the really interesting jobs this man has done. But just to give a little bit of background on him, he was one of the I'm gonna for like there are a million titles for these things. He did something along the lines of marketing for like Disney, in the extent and like Marvel to the extent of like helping sell like movie ideas.
Oh, he like pitches things. I don't know what to.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
in like, and then also I just read the chapter that I just read. He also was the very first tour manager for Destiny's Child before they were Destiny's Child.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like super interesting things. So this man's done a lot in like the industry and has had to deal with a lot of shit. But what makes me really laugh is the part, little section of the title that I sent to Maria. The chapter itself is called "Confronting Your Fear," but the section that I sent to Maria literally is titled "Them."
Yeah, like on the top of these pages, because I just got screenshots from Brittany. It literally just says them. I'm like, okay. I'm like, is that what the book is called? Because I also like, did you even send me what the book was called? No.
No, absolutely not. No, I did not.
It's just like them. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, the book is called "Built for Courage." He talks about like building your courage through your life. But
Yeah.
it's this section of the title, the chapter on confronting your fear is all about other people. But he literally titles the section "Them," and it's funny because I could totally see, um, like Jordan Peele coming out with like the next version of the Us movie. It's them. You know what I mean? Like Us versus them.
Oh, quick caveat or quick whatever. His
What?
next movie is called Nope. Did you did you see
Oh
that?
no, I did
So
not.
that's all. So he
Is that
yes,
like a recent thing that's happened? Because I
yeah,
missed.
like I just saw the preview for it when I went to the movies last week. Which we can talk about that movie in a different episode to be
We
honest with you.
totally should.
But
Um,
called Nope. So yes, it would be in the category of Jordan Peele's next movie called Them.
yes, that's so funny. So yeah, so let's like get into this. So
Mhm.
what do you, how would you like me to do this? Is there something that you want to talk about first? Do you want me to like start going through stuff and then take your
I'm
dance
gonna take
on
your
it?
lead because you
Cool.
read more, so like yeah, I'm sure you have more things to say, So I'll you go
Okay,
first.
here's my favorite thing that we're going to talk about, and Maria, I can't wait to hear. So he talks about in the very beginning,
Mhm.
working against your greatest fear. And for so many people, our greatest fear is other people for reasons that we don't even realize. And especially for people who tend to be more introverted and would rather be by themselves, which is literally both of us. I know you might be
Yeah.
surprised, but guys, I literally would rather be by myself.
Mood. I literally tell people like I don't like I'm gonna go MIA. Like like literally I'm just like I like and I rarely like respond to you because I know that we're gonna talk like
Yeah,
within the
it's
week or
cool.
whatever.
What
So
I
it's
was,
like I just go MIA. So yes, like
yeah.
I would
And
rather
then
be alone.
when you're by yourself for long enough, like
Mhm.
once you get settled into the comfort of being by yourself, the idea of having to face other people is literally paralyzing. Anyway,
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
so talking about fear of other people. So the first thing that he says, a lot of the perspective of this chapter in this book is the reason why we're afraid of other people is because we're afraid of what they're going to think of us. We're afraid of their
Yeah.
criticism.
Yeah.
And which as a person like 100% identify with. It's which is funny because I don't care what people think, but like my ego cares
But
what
you
people think.
do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that's frustrating, but my favorite line in this whole book so far is you aren't free ice cream. You can't make everyone happy.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, and like that was the first page that you like scanned over, and it was literally right in the smack in the middle, y'all.
It's
Like
just
just like
genius.
you aren't free ice cream. You can't make everyone happy. Which the you can't make everyone happy is such like a yes, that makes sense. But as people pleasing people, like yeah, but don't tell me that. You know, like it's just like yes, I get it, but damn, like I no, thank you.
Isn't it so funny that as people pleasing people, and that's a part of the problem, right?
Hmm.
We were raised with that as a part of like that's a cog in our system that we have to like one of the processes that we have to go through is whatever we output, we need to please people. But it's not relative. It's like it's not our logical brain understands that like no, but our like the
Emotional. It's the
our
emotional
yeah
side.
our
Yeah.
especially being empath like your empathness is like no, but I really for some reason I guess because he related it to food. I've had people tell me this idea in a lot of ways, like you don't have to please everybody, but
Yeah.
this specific way of saying it really hit home for me. And I was like, oh damn, okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
because like uh again, it makes sense. Like you just said, it literally just makes sense. Like, no, not everyone needs to be happy with you.
hmm,
But like if it hits if the free ice cream hits more than like you can't make everyone happy, then it works for you, right? Like
yeah. And the next thing he goes on to say is don't let a critical person for whom your he talks about like people's output as like their light. So don't let the critical person for whom your light was never intended keep you from letting it shine on the rest of those who desperately need it. And the one
hmm
little like caveat that I added in was like this also applies to yourself, right? So like you can't let people who criticize you stop you from like giving light to yourself too if you are in need of whatever it is that you want to do or it doesn't matter. So I thought that I just it's just so simple,
and also I mean like
so genius.
the light thing speaks to me. I feel like I also in my own philosophies tend to see things in like light or darkness. So like
Hmm.
it makes sense. Like why waste your time and energy on
Yeah,
like
it's
people that
so
like
simple.
yeah. So yeah,
I
we
love
both
when
got
things are
something out
simple.
of that. Yeah, for sure.
And then he says to, I'm just gonna like, read another little section.
Yeah,
I'm
go
on
ahead.
the next page, just for
Okay.
your like the bottom of the
Yeah,
next page.
I'm not
Um,
on my phone just to be on my phone, guys.
I
I'm
know
like,
Maria's reading the stuff I sent her. So he talks a little bit about his own journey in dealing with worrying about whatever he puts out there being rejected or criticized by people. And he says the fear most people have about them, meaning other people, isn't over how much impact they'll have, but they worry about how much criticism. They worry what they'll say, what they'll think, and more of games fostered by our ego and the handiwork of our insecurity. It's an overstated sense of self. I hate to break this to you, but no one is thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves.
mhm.
It's it's again, it's one of those things that I literally preach this to the dancers that I work with and like people who want to go into yoga classes and who tell me they're terrified. especially in a situation when we're already feeling vulnerable, like people are going to look at us. If you're thinking that, everyone else in that situation is thinking that, and then no one's actually thinking about anybody else.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like your daily life, especially when so much of the daily life that we live in is about competition and comparison,
yeah.
it's so hard to think that way.
Because you think it's both narcissistic that and also an empath. It's like both at the same time, which is so
Yeah,
contradictory because like
the
it's like no
paradox
people
of others.
right. It's like you're and the narcissistic way comes in like they're thinking about me. Like they're definitely but like they're not. Like
Do you know how long? And I still to this day even have worries about this. And I think this is part of like me dealing with trauma because there was a point where
Mhm.
if you're anybody who's ever had rumors spread about you that got back to you, especially as
The worst.
like
Teenager.
a younger person,
Yeah, yeah.
it becomes a seed that's planted in your head and it's always something you worry about, which is really annoying. But I know for a fact that because I've had in many multiple instances of that being a truth for me, I always have this little alarm that goes off in my head, like, oh my God, those people are talking about me.
And it could
And,
also be a good like the rumor could be a good thing too. It
right,
could be
exactly.
go
But it doesn't
either
matter.
way.
They're
Yeah.
talking about you and you don't know what they're saying. That's
Exactly. You're not in that room, so it's like you want to like hone in
right.
the outer image that you're trying to uphold for like random people. Like
Right. And as I don't like
not
why
even like the 5% that he's like talking about in this next
right.
like few whatever.
And the truth of the matter is if in most of the situations that I've been in, if somebody has said something good about me, someone in that group will likely share that, right? Because, like they're like, oh, by the way, I was talking to this person and they said this about, or we were just talking about you. Like people, and I do that to people, right? Like, oh, I was just having
Oh
a
yeah.
conversation with you about you and this. But, and if it's not that, if it's not something that's supportive, then you don't want to hear it anyway. Like, what? Again, not a free ice cream, right? Not everybody
Yeah.
gonna like eat it and like you, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But here's the beauty of the paradox. He says like this one sentence that says, "Not worrying about what other people think is the prerequisite for courage." And I thought
That makes sense.
that makes so much sense. And this is where we constantly like live in that paradox, right? It's not that
Mhm.
when we say or when I say I don't care what other people think, it's not that I don't care what other people think. It's that I'm not going to let what other people think stop me from taking my next courageous action.
Yeah, that's exactly what the next like thought is. It's
Right.
like the
And that's
first
what we
thought,
mean.
yeah, the first thought is kind of like not I don't want to say juvenile, but like without any experience of struggle in the real world. And then
Yeah.
it's like the next step is
Yeah.
like the understanding of like that
Yes.
first sentence,
Because
like
it comes back to what you said. As much as we tell ourselves we don't care what other people think, a part of our brain, a part of our ego will always care what other people think. So it's not that we don't care what they think. It's just that we don't have to absorb what it is that they think. We don't have
yeah,
to listen to what it is that they think and let
yeah,
that be something that stops us like what fear rightly does. Fear is the thing that stops us from taking our next courageous action. So
uh-huh.
as that's what we really mean to say. But again, because we want it, because our ego is so screwed up, we don't want people to know that our ego actually cares what people think. Our ego tells us to say us that we don't, but that's not what actually is going.
But that's not what actually happens. Like until you find that courage really to block that shit
Right.
out.
And we've talked about this on previous episodes, right? Like you don't find courage by you don't or you're not just magically courageous. Like there's no the only way that you build courage is by facing that fear and taking the action and like seeing it and taking it anyway. So, and I'm not going to lie, like having our own fear, I have overcome in my life so many things that I'm afraid of, but one of the things that without a doubt always becomes something that can paralyze me or like literally be a roadblock for me is dealing with this fear of other people.
Yeah, I have it in a similar way where it's am I gonna say this right now? I'm
I
dealing
love
with
this.
like abandonment issues situations. Like
Got it.
that is also a fear of other people in a in a different way.
Those are the two biggest fears that people have.
That aren't like.
There's a woman.
Uh-huh.
What does she do? There's a woman named Peppa Grange who literally sounds like a Harry Potter character, right?
No, it sounds like Peppa Pig.
Like, I know, but her name is Peppa Grange, and I don't remember anything about her credentials, but she's Australian, and she works in like a lot of
psychology stuff,
things. Yeah. And those are the two biggest, like the fears that people have. Like all of our fears are somehow attached to these two underlying fears: death and the fear of abandonment, and the fear of like rejection, and like
they're like offshoots of it.
Exactly, stem from that. So understood. Go ahead. What were you saying about your fear of abandonment?
I really can't remember. Like the fear of people, right? Like abandonment is like an offshoot of that.
They're not gonna love me anymore.
Exactly. Like
I won't be accepted.
And it's such like there was never a name for it until I like went to therapy. You know, like once you get over, and it's still like there's a fucking flare up for me right now. Like I'm dealing with right now. Like the fear of people will never go away, but it's like how you cope with it is like that next step.
Literally is a habit. If you did not listen to our last episode, go back and listen to it. You are never done working on it.
Right, and it's like
before your brain's even processed, so you have no control. Like those roots never end.
Right, and it's like going back to like just like the whole fear and courage thing. Like it's without a name to it. It's like you're stuck until you find that situation and that name, and you're like, okay, what can I do to remedy this? Which is like
totally
dealing with fear.
And it's exactly what you said. The idea and the concept of just saying, I don't care what people think, also is a perfect way to get yourself stuck, because that's not the full sentence, right?
Yeah, you're missing that, and you're missing the like actual action.
I've been in that frustrating place where I'm like, I don't care what people think, and I'm like, wait, I do care what people think. Like, why is this happening?
It's such like denial. You have to go through like the stages of like grief. Like you're stuck. A lot of people are stuck in denial for so long until they accept like the actual fear behind it.
The stages of grief, apparently there's more than just the ones that we say.
There's like 12 or something. There's like a lot. I saw it the other day somewhere.
We really only, it's interesting how we choose to only assign it to, if you think about it, right?
Death?
If the things that we're really ultimately afraid of are death and abandonment and anything related to like getting rejected or criticized by other people, it's funny how we only choose to, and we know that now, we only choose to attach grieving to death. But when we lose people that are physically here, which is 10 times more painful,
it's
I think.
Worse, yeah.
We don't know how to grieve that process either. So I
don't think we know how to grieve outside of death properly. That's
I don't think people know how to grieve.
Period. Period. Full stop.
It's because it's not like saying it as a single word does not fully encompass the shit story
behind it. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a totally an easier said than done situation, but how do you encourage people to work in the process of grieving when it just brings up their fear of the two things that, you know,
they don't even want to face.
That they don't want to face at all. So that's hard, and that takes a lot of work, and that's a totally different conversation that we're going to have at a later point with possibly a therapist anyway. So
with a third party present,
when we're talking about them, David Hollis breaks them. I thought this part was super interesting. David Hollis breaks people into 3 different categories. I'm going to take a picture of this and I'll share it on our Instagram so people can see it. Yeah. So this was very helpful to me also, because something about seeing a pie chart, visuals.
Oh, visuals helped me tremendously. So this was helpful.
So let's break them down. So I'm just going to go through like the chapter part. So he says 85% of people are casual acquaintances in your life. Mm-hmm. So he defines them as people who you know them, but you don't do life with them every single day.
The fact that you say don't do life with them, it like that makes it clear.
And Right. And he says they don't exist within your life, they exist around your life. So
Yes.
the
Yeah.
visual example he gave, because again, visuals and metaphors, there are when you are inside of the arena and you're fighting your battles, they are the spectators. Spectators will watch and cheer and boo, but they don't get to say how the game is played.
Yeah. Yeah. They're spectators of your life.
Which social media, again, social
Yes.
media has screwed us in this respect, right? Because and this is I think probably why Instagram for the longest time was trying to stop the like feature from happening, because we empower the spectator to be more than just a spectator and have some type of assessment on the action we're doing inside of the arena when we offer a like button. That's like going back in time and giving all the people inside of the arenas like little heart things that they have to hold up if they think that what the fighters are doing is good. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
empowering, and like it's one thing for them to make comments and have a voice, but it's so easy. It takes more effort to write a comment than it does to just be like or not like.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
I get that. Yeah.
So that was great to me because now I'm going to remind myself by having the definition of being like, is this a person that I do life with?
Yeah. Or are they not?
Remind
Yeah.
me. And it made me think to myself, there are people who I love dearly
Mhm.
and might even have a little fear in like getting criticism from them where I'm like, oh shit, like I don't do life with you either.
Yep.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
where you get to like even talking like friends and family
And
members.
family. Yeah.
It really started to alter my perspective. So that's 85% of
I'll say,
people
yeah,
in your life.
85% of the people that you have in your life are these spectators. Let's just,
Nuts.
yeah.
All right, so then it jumps quite a lot, much smaller number. He goes to 10% and he says 10% are misguided loved ones. Misguided. They're the people who have opinions that you do care about because you love or crave love from them, going back to our fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
But when they have thoughts on how you're living your life, it actually has an effect on you. These people, however, are representing their concern for your choices through the lens of their fear, not love. They are giving you advice based on their own limiting beliefs, not the truth of your ability. They mean well, but are misguided because they don't understand your motives, share your values, or appreciate the landscape of the way you do. Or even have, I'm gonna add on there, like they don't even have your actual experiences. Like even if they go through life with you, they're not really full in like they don't have a full picture.
Yeah, exactly.
The greatest thing that is in this little section is that he says they're representing concern for your choices through the lens of their
Their
fear.
fear. Yeah.
Remember what we said at the end of last episode, friends? Don't put your fear on me.
Oh, yeah. Don't project.
I
Did you have an epiphany?
no, well, I have multiple epiphanies all the time. That's why I like to read this stuff because it makes me
Yeah.
realize how I can better guide myself from having to deal with this shit. But there are people in my life who wait until we get to the 5%ers,
Yeah.
but there are people in my life who people love to share fear. Like they just it's misery loves company. It's so easy to share our fears, and I love that he put in the fact that it's misguided because they're all well intended,
Yeah, correct.
but they're not checking themselves.
Right. It's like one of those, it's more or less, I see this when people one up me,
Mm.
you know? They're like, I try and kind of connect with them, like say what's going on, whatever, and then they'll just be like, "Oh, well, back in my like back when I was your age, or like so, or like this happened recently to me," or I'm just like, at that point, you're just like, I'm just checked out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know if you're just like venting to me, just or like trying to give me advice where
And they're
advice isn't
no
even warranted.
more or less in those situations. I feel like people are trying to form some type of connection.
Right. There are times where I will say a story to connect with someone. That I am also, I also do this, but I phrase it in a way where it's not one up ish. You know when like
Mm.
you can tell when people are one upping you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a way to be like I can relate to your experience. I had a
Hmm.
similar experience when, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why we're sharing it. But sometimes when we don't say that that's our clear intent, it doesn't always come out.
Yeah.
But
And
he's
like it's those
good.
misguided people that are trying to feed something
Yeah.
into me.
Yes.
You know, like that's where I find it more often than not.
Totally. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what he said. He says, these people mean well. They're presenting their fear wrapped in love. It's not this part. I love this part. It's not a gift worthy of accepting because it's not connected to who you are or why you're making your decision. You're following your calling, not theirs. While the intentions of this misguided loved one are harder to release, they
Yeah.
are releasable all the same.
It is hard because it is coming from the people that you
Hedge and
tend
release,
to,
boo.
yeah, it is the people that you tend to either hang out with or like see family and their family, you know?
And
So,
these are the hardest ones to realize that you have to let go of,
yes.
especially as a people
Cuz
pleaser.
yeah, cuz you still have relationships with these people.
Right. And so like my practice for myself, it's so easy with the 85% to be like, wait, you're not in my life every day. Right.
Oh, it's so easy.
That's a
Disregard.
clear line. Yeah. But for these places it can be harder, especially if it's people that you love, you spend more time with. But the thing that um has to be, I think, the separation point is that when someone, they have to have such like a like so here's an example, right?
Yeah.
There is, my husband and I are probably the only, I would say to anybody in the world, he would be the person that I would say would be shares in my values the most, right? Like we are on the same page the most out of everybody else that I have like do life with, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm talking about something related to like my dance career or my dance experiences, he's got, he, as much as he might try to understand what's going on for me in that, he's not me. He doesn't understand my experiences and my, you know what I mean? Like my calling,
Yeah.
what, especially when it comes to like reaching to the higher power, right? Like no one's going to answer that, be able to answer that call but me if it's like a,
Right.
so even if he's well intended in anything that he's saying, he has no like attachment point to be able
Yeah.
to make any statement. So that's what I have to, that's what I'm using for myself. And if this helps anybody else to remember that you, if you don't truly, you can acknowledge and you can respect, but if you don't truly understand where it is that I'm coming from on something, then why there's, you know, you're misguided, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's well intentions again behind everything. It's just like you don't have to listen to it. But it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard not to.
And this is why, just like the little pop filter that I see on Maria's microphone right now, we have to start to strengthen our ability to filter everything that comes at us, especially from the people that we love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 5%ers. This one's hard. Okay. 5% are the people you love with legitimate concern. Oof.
Period.
These are the people who are in your life that love you and crave love from you, that get your motivation, see the alignment with your values, have some handle on the landscape, and want to engage in a conversation to make sure you're considering every angle. They want to play the role of accountability partner and become an accomplice in your preparation for the journey ahead. You should listen to the opinions of these people. Wait.
Yeah, wait.
I mean, you
Don't
should
stop listening.
always do what they say. But being in a community with people who have a legitimate concern for you and look to play a role in preparing you for the implications of big decisions is something that all of us need in our lives. No one goes on the journey of self-actualization alone.
Yeah, let me just repeat before you go on.
Yes, please
This
do.
doesn't mean that you should always do what they say.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind, people.
Correct. And literally, this is where the concept of holding a mirror up to one another comes from.
Yeah.
Right? In the
Mm-hmm.
in the way that what else? I was listening to something. Poopsicles. I take so much content throughout any given day. But I was just listening to something about the difference between there is a difference between me taking a tennis ball and bouncing it against the wall and it coming back to me,
Mm-hmm.
and me like volleying with somebody on a tennis court.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to have that volley versus
Right. A wall.
people being able to play off of what we're saying versus us just going the wall, because I'm the only person, if we just look in the mirror on our own, we're going to only see what we want to see. There's going to be a
Right.
limit to what we're able to do. But if somebody else is there standing next to that mirror, right, sending that volley back and guiding, guiding what we look at in that mirror, it's going to be able to change our perspective. And I will tell you this, from my point of view, I haven't always done this in the most like non-abrasive way. I'm so much better at it now. But when I have a conversation with somebody who brings me an issue, a concern,
situation
dealing with,
yeah,
I love being that person who helps them find a new perspective.
yeah, because it's a disservice to them. This is probably to both of our values, if you will. It's a disservice to them to just be a wall.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. One of the things that I'm getting really good at, and I'm still learning how to get good at, is, and I've talked to you about this too, is like me trying to deal with how I respond to all of the toxic, positive shit that I built into my head.
Yeah.
And being able to like put in perspectives around that. But I think one of the reasons why I love being in that position so much is because I love when people do that for me. Because it changes my, like, literally changes my world, right? When people can do that for me. But those are your 5%ers, people, and that's not a lot of people.
No, but because again, we spend a lot of time seeing the other 85%. So we get muddled into thinking that they are the 5% that we should be, sending our energy to.
Remember when we had our conversation about friendship, and the both of us were like, I can count all my my friends on like one hand.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'm just now at the point where I'm like, I'm so happy that I don't do this. But I remember when there used to be a point where we were like, oh my gosh, like, you need to have all of these friends. And what does it say about you if you don't have all these friends? And this concept completely blows that shit up.
Yeah, because like, what is the use of, I don't know, 100 friends when you can't even, when they're all walls and not like people volleying with you?
Yeah, for real. And so, yeah, this was crazy. And one of the biggest things that he says, he talks about this a lot, in the idea of like trying to be in some type of leadership or putting something out into the world. He says, remember that the cost of entry for a life of impact is criticism.
Oh.
Damn. But
yeah, and like, criticism from
95% of those people who don't have to listen to.
Literally, yeah.
I mean, 100% of those people you don't have to listen to.
Yes. The 5%, again, you don't always have to do whatever they say.
Yes.
That's not the point of the 5%.
Correct. And he has this little, so if anybody's like wondering, like, ooh, I wonder who sits on where on this for me, he has this little log activity.
Yeah, which I actually like.
Right? Isn't it great? Yeah. It's such a good visual. He said, I'm just going to share this with you guys. So on a blank page, put columns 85%, 10%, and 5%, and then think about the people that you would put under. Mm-hmm. Like, whose judgment are you worried about right now? Put it under these 3 buckets, and the 5% people that matter are the people that you can go to, and everybody else you're gonna
release. It says release the rest.
Yeah, release the rest. I think that's just genius, and I personally always start with those 85%ers that I'm worried about the most, and it makes absolutely no freaking sense. So now I have this little thing to come back to and be like, wait.
Yeah, who these buckets? Yeah.
Bye. So just really, I want everybody to do this activity and let me know how it goes for you, because it really, I have like 3 people that I need to talk to about my life, and everybody else can just
you can release them,
be there, and it's cool. Like, everybody serves their purpose, but when it comes to you actually wanting feedback from somebody, and that's the truth too, right? We don't create enough of a distinction between the idea of feedback and criticism. Mm-hmm. Feedback should not have opinion attached to it.
Feedback should just literally be, here are the facts, and then here's a possible solution for you, not attached in any personal way. And these are the possible
options that you can go.
Yes.
This is how we can help you get to whatever resolve you're looking for.
Criticism, on the other hand,
not that.
It just digs into your personality.
Right. And like, no bueno. So, I don't know if I sent this to you because I read this part more, but I'm going to read this to you, and then you're going to tell me what you think.
Okay, great.
Ready?
Yeah.
So this is from the later end of his chapter on fear. And he honestly, it's interesting. It's related to the death, like the end of death section. Yeah. But He quotes two people. So the first quote that he says is from Tim Ferriss, and it says, "The hard choices, what we most fear doing, asking, saying, these are very often what we need most to do."
Say that again. Say that first part again.
The hard choices,
Uh-huh.
what we most fear doing, asking, or saying, are very often what we most need to do.
Oh, yeah. I agree. It
That was easy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like the things you in your head, typically the things you don't want to do, you fucking have to do.
Yep.
Because if you don't do them, you're stuck. This could literally be your next task at work, your next fucking homework assignment, or literally your fear of abandonment.
Yeah. And
Like
having
it
to
is
address it and actually deal with it. Yeah.
it is in every aspect of your life. Like
Yeah.
because then you're stuck. And then you're stuck for the rest of your life if you don't deal with this.
The additionally not related, but also
Yeah.
still related, I'm also still reading the Untamed book by Glennon Doyle.
Uh-huh.
And one of the chapters that she has in there, in addition to what we're doing, what we're afraid of, she says that for people who start to feel, as they go through life, they start to feel lost or like they don't know what their purpose is. And apparently, it's something that's more commonly happening for people who identify as women than it does for people who identify as men. That the things that you're afraid of or the things that you hear that break your heart and make you the most uncomfortable are the things that you need to learn more about because that's where your purpose lies.
That makes sense.
And like there's
I
fear attached to that too,
there's
though,
fear. There's
right?
a lot of fear there because it's like, do you want to open those doors?
Exactly. So I
Like
thought that was just another interesting,
life's hard.
and it's fun to put it into perspectives like of obviously like you read these things and I don't know if you guys are like me, but when I read stuff I always, well, that's the way we apply it. You start to think about it in your own lens, right? So it's like assimilated into your head. When I think about the work that I do in the dance world, I do it because it, first of all, I broke from not having it, like I was broken, but when I think about what's happening now, it breaks my heart. And one of the other things that I've noticed as I'm noticing more and more as we get older, and I'm really kind of afraid of, is the true reality of what women's rights and women's lives look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is interesting and funny because I studied women's rights in college. Like that was a part of the school that I went to, being at Douglas. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
take it much further than that. But I'm starting to realize as I'm getting older and really starting to realize the amount of restrictions around us, especially this is relevant with, you know, the shit that just
Yeah.
happened with our government. But as I'm getting older and I'm starting to realize all of these programmings that were unknowingly put upon me as a female,
Yeah.
I'm realizing how much of a toll it takes and how far we've come. And looking back, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what was this shit like for women that we didn't have the options and the opportunities that
Yeah.
we all
The
have now?
opportunities.
So, yeah, look at the shit that makes you uncomfortable. And that might be your purpose. That's a side note. Anyway, so this is the second quote.
Uh-huh.
Ba 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 ba. Steve Jobs gave like some type of, I don't remember where I read what his lead in is to this, but Steve Jobs gave like a commencement speech,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how his speech ended. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of other people's opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Steve Jobs.
Period. Steve Jobs.
Like,
No, that's
so much. And so,
like it it literally so much can be unpacked within that
you're
quote. Because again, it's the fear of literally living your life for another person, like or
yeah.
other people's opinions. Which, granted, we've all been through this. I've been through it. At one point, you know, if you lose your way, you tend to live based on other people's dogma.
Yeah, because then all that fear sets in and you need something to hold on to, and it's easier when you have nothing to hold on to from yourself. It's so
It's
easy
so easy to
to
grab
the
onto
fear of other
someone or
people.
something. Yeah.
Yep.
Which sometimes or most times is toxic because again, it's not your life, but sometimes it's needed, which is, unfortunate.
And the reality of the fact too is that sometimes you need to hold on to someone else's shit and go down that path to realize like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Something's not right
100%.
here. And
Right.
that's
And
literally the last little bit of the last, like the next little chapter that I wanted to share with you is that
mhm,
when we talk about the people who give us misguided,
yeah,
the
the
misguided love,
10%.
and the people who it's really easy to, when you're out to sea by yourself and you're looking for a life raft, it's easy to grab out to whatever they have.
Mhm.
He said the same. So literally all the stuff that you just said is part of the chapter that leads into this little sentence. But he says, watch out for anyone trying to disguise their gut judgment or advice as their fear of, I'm just looking out for you. They're operating from their best intentions, but
Mhm.
they won't live with the regret of not fully exploiting the gifts at the end of your life. Wait, they will not die with your unrealized dreams. They will not wonder how much more light that you might have offered the world if you'd better guarded your mind from the distractive forces that they had second guessing yourself.
That's wild. you they really went to like they're not going to remember you upon their deathbed basically.
No, and it's right when you look at all the elderly people who pass away, their biggest
Yeah.
regrets are I wish I would have and it's whatever their value is, right? I wish I would have blank. I wish I would have done this with my life.
Yeah.
Um
That's wild though.
so wait, ready?
Yeah.
If any of this does not like if you start to go through any of this work or you're thinking like shit, this is not good for me, welcome to my life. He says, if you realize that the way you spend your time with dealing with fear does not support the way you need to spend your time going forward, new boundaries must be set.
Period.
If the influences that I'm immersed in every day from those people in those buckets negatively affect my thinking or compromise my belief in self, they must go. And I underlined they must go like 6,000 times.
Cuz
And
they do.
closing.
And close book. No, but those people do have to go unfortunately. And that doesn't mean if it's the 10% people, it doesn't mean like cut them off, but like you don't have to
No,
listen to them.
but like put them in the 85%, right? And it's not like they have to, that's the thing too. I think we say so much how we create this sharp, jagged distinction of like, you go over there and I'm going to like, stab you and die and I don't want you in my life anymore. You don't, oh, hiccups. You don't need to metaphorically kill anybody off,
Yeah.
but you can start to create spaces with boundaries. And sometimes it's the sad reality of the way that we've allowed ghosting to become a thing because all of us don't know
Jesus.
how to deal with
Yeah. Oh my
all of
god.
those emotions about creating degrees of separation between people. And I don't think I've ever ghosted anybody, but I've been in enough situations, mostly with friends, where I've been ghosted and it's really painful and shitty. So don't do it to people. But
Yeah, I will also say, like, I mean, I'm on these dating apps. It's easy to ghost people when you don't know them, obviously,
yeah, especially
but
when you're on an app, like hello.
but it gets harder when you're in a situationship, if you will, and then
Situationship, I love it.
because it's not really a relationship yet, right?
No,
It's
it's
like,
like a
but if you know them and they're, it sucks. I've been on the receiving end and also the giving end, so I
what
know both.
I don't understand about that whole situation is that
Yeah. Why not have a conversation, right?
well,
Like,
I guess if we look at the conversation that we just had around the fact that people are afraid of any type of rejection or like it's so funny.
yeah,
Like, we're afraid our intention is to cause separation from the
yes.
get-go, right? If I'm the person like I'm your friend or we're in a situationship, I love that word, stealing it. And
Go ahead.
I
I found it on the
don't want
internet.
it to continue. Genius. I am initiating those degrees of separation, right? So
Yeah.
my intent is to end that regardless, right?
Mhm.
But instead, because I have a fear of rejection, even though I no longer give two shits about like what you think of me, right? Technically,
Yeah.
'cause I want to
Yeah.
separate from you. My fear of rejection stemmed from my fear of abandonment is
Hmm.
still so strong that
Yeah.
I would rather ghost you than give you the opportunity to get mad at me or reject me in some way. But what
Right.
sucks
Literally.
about that is that for you as the other person, I automatically make you suffer with the fear of abandonment that I don't
Cor-
want to deal with.
correct.
Isn't
Cor-
that bullshit?
oh, girl, like, duh. I've been through it a couple times. It's not pretty.
That is bullshit. And it's, I
It
don't,
it doesn't again, and it's just again, I literally just said I have abandonment issues. So when it
right.
happens, my flare up is so intense that all of a sudden I'm just like isolated.
Dude.
So it's like it's unfair. And again, it's so common, especially with these dating apps, especially with just social media, right? Like
Yeah.
it's unfair when people do that to others because they are not, it's a narcissistic thing. Like they're not thinking of the
But they don't,
repercussions.
99.99% of people probably on that level don't realize that that's what's going on.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. They're so, to them it's just like, I don't, who cares? We don't even
Right.
have a thing. So like let's
Yeah.
just, but I think it's
Ah.
worse. Like a potential romantic relationship is like one thing, but it's worse when it's a friendship. I think
Yeah. Oh
that is
yeah,
the
because
worst
you're in a
type.
relationship that has no there's no gratification from sexual involvement.
It's
So,
purely like, I feel like platonic
right.
relationships are
Yes.
purely like the strongest of bonds because
Right.
it's literally like you guys are there for each other
Yeah, you're
because
not
you're
getting
just
anything else out of it.
right, you're
There's no
purely
pleasure,
just
there's no
there.
sexual pleasure coming out of it.
You're purely just there for each other's betterment. And then if you ghost a friend, like especially if it was a
Yeah.
close friend, it is literally like the worst type of breakup.
And this is why, this is how people start having fear of them. Like, this is
Yeah,
how
that's the fear of
all of it
other
starts.
people. Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the reality of all of it, right? The full circle of this whole thing in dealing with the fear of others is that first and foremost, we've created spaces where people have been burned and put in like having to deal with their fears of the two things that they're afraid of around, well, like literally in death and
Yeah.
parting and some other end of a relationship, whether it's abandonment, rejection, or harsh criticism.
Hmm.
We create too many of those situations, and our society now is founded on those fucked up situations. That's the
Yeah.
first problem. But the second problem is not enough people are stopping to actually deal with their shit related to those two things to create change,
Yeah. Within themselves or whatever.
right, to make it any to perpetuate, like to stop perpetuating this as the reality. So I, as a human being, am trying to address this shit for myself
Yeah.
because I don't want to. It's. I don't think there's a single. I mean, that's
Take
a
that back
lie.
before.
I'm
Yeah.
taking it back. I, the not jaded, hopeful part of me, I don't believe that there is that people want. If people actually realize what they were doing to one another, I don't think people want to do that to one another.
Yeah. I guess.
So we just need to be better, like aware and educated about it, and help to just find ways that we can, from infancy within family systems, create better boundaries and
Hmm.
understanding about how we could not allow others to put their fear on us.
Yeah. It's truly just that. It's truly just like people are projecting, and you're trying, and most of the time we're absorbing the projection, and all of a sudden it's our fear, but it's really theirs. Like
And
it's a clear distinction that people have
this
to
is why
see.
parenting sucks, because this type of stuff starts developing for your kid the second they start understanding bodily response, like the second they
Yeah.
start understanding body language. Like,
Hmm.
it's not, I was gonna initially say like words, but that's not even the case. The second they start to really understand that your body language is a reaction to their actions, this stuff starts.
Yeah, it's not healthy, y'all.
Dude,
Parenting is hard.
a lot more of a responsibility than most people realize it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, well, this was fun. We did a really good job for it now being 10:30 on a Monday.
10:30, guys.
I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
So this is what happens when we use books as references. So we'll have
I'm
more,
saying
we'll keep
you
using
have
more
more.
things as reference.
Yeah.
But yeah. Any closing remarks?
Don't ghost people. Figure out if people are projecting or not. Also, find your 5%.
Yep. Don't be afraid to define your buckets, to push other people's fear away. You deserve to live your best life.
Was that your closing?
Yes.
Okay, bye.